Hi, everybody. Welcome. Happy Wednesday to everybody. Welcome to AI Workshops for Local Government. I'm Dan Reus. I'm your moderator and host. The AI Workshops for Local Government is a series of free webinars for local government innovators looking to explore AI in their community. AI is rapidly evolving, and the breathless news we've been hearing would have us believe it's either the greatest thing to come or our worst nightmare. Whatever form artificial intelligence or AI takes, innovative public servants want to know what's real, what to be wary of, and how to build trust with their stakeholders in and out of government. This series helps state and local public sector servants keep up with the expectations that private sector AI innovations create, while helping them build trust with and provide services to their constituents that match or exceed their expectations. Today's session is Governance and Tech, Actionable Roadmaps for Municipal AI Use. This session is important because no municipality can have a fully developed policy for technology that's evolving as fast as AI is, but every municipality can be prepared for how to navigate this path from procurement to reporting. In this session, municipal innovators from San Jose, California, and Maricopa County, Arizona, will share both policy and technology perspectives on actionable steps for any community, regardless of how resourced it is, to map their own way forward for responsible AI exploration and use in municipal government. Both our presenters have found some early success in both implementation and governance with AI in local government. Each will share what they've done and how you can apply what they've done in your own community, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers and discussion. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen as we go, and we'll be drawing on those to keep things moving. So, time for our first presenter. AI shows promise, but in many cases, municipal procurement and policy isn't yet ready for it. Our first speaker is Judy, who's speaking on his experience with how city innovators can get started with AI. Judy has been named the Chief of Innovation and Emerging Technologies, Office of Enterprise Technology, or OET, for Maricopa County in Arizona. Previously, he was the Chief of Innovation and AI at the Clerk of the Superior Court of Maricopa County. Aaron is an award-winning leader recognized with the 2021 GovTech Future Ready and 2021 CIO Magazine and IDC Future Edge Awards. He was also distinguished as one of the CIO Magazine and IDC's Ones to Watch in 2020. In his AI and innovation role with Maricopa County, Aaron is building AI without big budgets or commitments to vendors. He's going to share his thoughtful approach on this from a tech and builder perspective and offer some thoughts on others so that others can find similar success. Aaron will speak on this for about 15 or 20 minutes, and we'll have time to answer questions afterwards, so please put your questions in the Q&A for us to track. Aaron, take it away.
Thank you, Dan. I have been at the county for over 16 years now. First with the assessor's office, and then with the Office of Enterprise Technology, then the Clerk of the Superior Court, and now this is day 3 back in the Office of Enterprise Technology. I began my journey with AI back in 2011 on a personal level. I have a complex health condition that took away my ability to walk for a short time. And during that time, I focused on how I could fend for myself with conversational AI, voice-first technology, and speech recognition. Maricopa County is the 4th largest county in the nation in terms of population. It's over 9,000 square miles, larger than 4 states, and half of Arizona's population is all here. Today, I want to talk to you about how you can find success with AI and emerging tech, regardless of your size and regardless of what you're really doing, right? I know some agencies have much more resources than others. I know we work for Maricopa County. I'm not oblivious to what it's like, trying to find 2 nickels to rub together. But I'll talk about strategies for each case, and we will come back to touch on this slide in a bit. So let's talk about money. This is probably the worst thing. We were just making a accounts payable joke a few minutes ago. But honestly, find a rapport with your finance folks. Build a relationship with them. Find out what your thresholds are for minimum permission, right? You need permission to do something, and then if you go over a certain threshold, there's certain requirements. You have to go to an RFP and things like that. Don't be afraid to ask what those are. Sometimes, if it's below $5,000, if it's below $100, you don't have to ask anyone. You can just go procure it. I have used AI services for $6 a month before. It's possible. So don't be afraid to ask. Have that conversation. Create a cheat sheet. Here are my thresholds. Below this amount, I can just procure. Over this amount, I have to go to RFP. In this gray area, I can do things called sole source and share that with your vendor. It's crazy, I know. You slide that across the table at the beginning of the conversation before you ask them how much their product costs, right? And I get that a lot. Are you allowed to ask how much something costs? Yes, you are. You're not violating anything. Just, it may be free. It may be cheap. There may be a complete free tier, and that's what you want. That's where the easy button is, right? Let the vendor know that you're shopping around. They're not the only show in town. Okay. Here's your minimums. You're not the only person. I'm going to call somebody else after we hang up. This is a good, transparent conversation. It explains that just because we're talking, we're not going to do business. It doesn't violate any, future MFR efforts. Find out if the vendor has a government contract already. If they do, you don't have to go to an RFP. If there's already a contract vehicle, we can do business. No questions asked, right? As long as procurement and everybody has reviewed this contract and approved, right? I mentioned sole source. There's a benefit to adopting bleeding edge technologies. In some agencies, in some cases, some government scenarios, you can do what's called sole source, where I want to acquire a technology, and this is the only show in town. Nobody else in the world makes this technology, right? Well, if it's bleeding edge, usually that's the case. Later, when you go back to either find a different technology or go to a different agency or replace this technology, there's usually other players. So now you have to review and talk to your finance folks. What happens if I replace this technology? Do I have to go to an MFR? Am I now concreted in my bleeding edge decision? Since you're starting out with unknowns, like consumption rates for production, leverage any API and throttling that's available. This helps build confidence with your finance folks. You can say, hey, I can contain costs to $6 a month, because if it goes over that, it turns off automatically. People feel better about that. When you go to ask for more money later, you've now built trust. They have trust that you're going to contain costs and not let this unknown new thing run rampant. With better trust and support, you can open up conversations around an innovation budget. What if we set aside money, $5, $100, $5,000, whatever that is to you? Set aside some budget for next year for exploring technology. Or you could get into more agile budget cycles, 3-month, 4-month budget cycles, where it's hard for you to say, I would like to set aside $100,000 for a technology that's going to be released in the middle of this budget cycle so that I can stay current along the path. It's impossible, right? We can't predict the future. What if you had shorter budget cycles? This comes with trust, right? You can build these you can get a large innovation budget that can be chopped up into smaller segments. You can ask for small portions of that budget. You can show value in return on that short quarter, 3-month, 4-month term, and then you can escalate from there. Let's talk about value, but first, can I get my first poll pulled up? So how far is everybody along in their journey right now? All right, you know what? I'm going to talk about this slide while you're completing this poll. So I'm going to let you in on a secret. Value is determined by the customer, the constituent, the citizen, whatever the word is that you use in your agency. You can't set the value. There's nothing you can do about that. And usually you can't, set the money either. So you're stuck in the middle trying to ask for money and prove value. You're going to have to estimate that at first. And I have ways of doing that. We created personas. These are small cards that say this is customer, this is Joe Smith. And if you've ever seen the website, this person doesn't exist, we'll even generate a little face for them. And we will write a narrative to this customer. Joe Smith wants to make online payments. What are his pain points? The types of technology, the points of connectivity that we use, the available types of payments that we accept. And then as we are creating technology, as we are proposing these solutions, we will attach those personas to this proposition. These are the problems I'm attempting to solve. I may not have a dollar value, but I start building intangible intrinsic values. I can point to a problem I'm going to try to solve. If that is diminishing incoming call volumes, I need to start instrumenting what that call volume is so that I know if it is diminished. I can guesstimate a value of those call volumes I'm trying to reduce and offset and use that as a loose approximation of value. But it's very hard to come up with something on your own. Let's go ahead and close the poll. Oh, okay. Just starting out or uncertain or exploring. Many people are, particularly in government, right? A lot of government is stuck in the wait and see pattern. We're not sure. We don't want to be the first ones to bite. And a lot of folks are looking at conversational or computer vision. I'm assuming computer vision is related to documents, usually in government. It's document. What is this document? What are some features from this document? Before I move on to the art of the possible, I just want to add a bit here. Try in all things to reduce the fear around the technology. And with AI, that's literacy, right? If you increase the AI literacy of your staff, of your customer, of those two that are interacting, you increase the value, even if it's unseen, right? You know, if there's less fear, I have less apprehension about adopting something or engaging you on a channel, if I have trust in that technology. So how do we do what we do? We look for technologies that don't require an integration partner. I try to find something that doesn't require an older boy to hold my hand while I figure it out. We read the manual, and I encourage you to find technologies that you or your staff, your team, your innovators can approach, can understand, can read the instructions, and it makes sense. Good documentation matters, and this is always a good smell check, as if the documentation's terrible when you first look at it, it's going to be terrible when you need it the most, right? Look for tech that you can use in more than one place. If you have amazing chat technology that's built into your support desk, and you can't put that chat widget anywhere else, it's useless. You want technology that I can put that chat widget on my public website. I can plug other channels into that chat agent like SMS or Facebook or something to that effect. Any technology that's isolated, only does a single purpose in one environment, is not a good solution. Design with composable architectures. Be ready to swap for better tech, really. You know what I mean? Think of your technology stack as Legos, loosely coupled. I can pull the Legos off the top, switch one out of the middle and put them back together, and all the pieces still fit. All of them still work. Inputs and outputs from one system to the other are all you really should be worrying about. Most of the time, I don't see a lot of government folks trying to build their own ML models. They want to buy solutions that have AI built into them, that do the things that they need so that they don't have to be in the business of writing software. So keep your innovation and project teams pure. Whoever is fielding this AI project, whoever is fielding this ML effort, whatever that is, don't drag them into a war room when the website's down. You're only going to hinder innovation. You're going to hinder their agility, the time to market, your exploration costs. I could go on. Pair your technologists with subject matter experts. One side knows what's possible, the other side knows the business. One of them will know, what will fly, and it is a great sounding board. This will never work because it doesn't matter if you can save somebody 8 hours of their life. If you told them they have to press this button now, well, now I've got to press this button. I only heard I have more work to do. I didn't hear that I have less work to do. You need a change agent on the business side, and that is your partner. Don't impose emergent technologies on traditional operations teams. If you have teams that are focused on server administration, or I don't know, they only handle one system, they silo, these are your DBAs. Don't say, here's an AI, I want you to learn this technology and implement it. That will only slow you down in countless other places. Your AI, your project team needs to either be ready to transition that technology to another team. They need to be ready to do early life support, early triage. And if that technology is so weird, so alien to the team that it's going to land on, you may have to keep that in your innovation team. Your innovation team, your implementation team, whatever that is, they may become the new owners of this product, the new care and feeding of this product. Every risk has a possible reward. That reward is an approximation of value, right? If I do this, I'm going to gain these things. It can be time, it can be money, it can be knowledge. It's the art of the possible. I know what my team is capable of. I know the technologies and the time it takes us to do these things. It gives me a loose approximation of agility in a lot of ways. Like any research effort, share what you have tried and the outcomes from your work with your coworkers, your peers, your counterparts. We created a group called the Bot Builders Guild, where we get together and disseminate the art of the possible. I'll talk about that later, maybe. Build a portfolio of capability. That is, what is possible, what is required, what is missing, what is your gap right now? If we wanted to go down this path, what is the gap we have to cover in order to get there? Because when the day comes, it's funny, the number of folks that'll say, hey, it's like you guys had this on a back burner somewhere waiting for us. No, we knew what we could do in the time we were given. Now let's put it all together, right? Start out small. Prove value. If you have to start free on the free tier with nothing else, do that. Create your own documents. If you're scanning documents, create your own documents. Whatever you need to just to prove value. Here's where composable comes in. If you have to use junk to prove what's possible, only to ask for money to replace junk with a better product, that's okay. Start out with junk. Don't use it in production. Use it in a test scenario, but prove that innovation is possible. Get ahead of cloud spend. Partner with your finance folks. Measure your impacts. Measure the things that you're trying to offset. Actually, measure everything, but sometimes that's not actually that's usually cost prohibitive. But highlight the limitations that any of your current solutions have, and look for any potential newcomers to the market. You have to stay current on industry trends. And then as those opportunities arise, scale up. Once you've proven that value, look what I did with $5. Can I have 10? Okay, now can I have 20? And once you've shown that impact and you've built that trust, it's easier to say, hey, I want to go out on a limb here. I need $100,000. Somebody will believe in you. Don't forget to put all your questions in the Q&A portion of the chat, and I will try to answer all those at the end. And Dan, take it away. Dan is going to introduce Albert next. Thank you all very much for having me.
Thanks, Aaron. That was wonderful. And Aaron will be here through the end of our session, so he's available for asking questions. Please, as he said, put those in the chat. We're going to put another poll out. We'd like to just learn a little bit more about what the audience is like and kind of a little bit of demographic information so that we can tailor things for who's here. So if you'd take a moment to fill that in, to answer that poll while I introduce our next speaker. So next, after that conversation about the building perspective that Aaron gave us, we're going to dive into governance and privacy and trust. If AI is to offer benefits to local government, it has to be trusted by constituents and local government stakeholders. Our next speaker is Albert Gehami, the privacy officer for the city of San Jose, overseeing responsible and effective deployment of AI, technology, and data initiatives. The city of San Jose has been recognized as a national leader in privacy and AI governance, serving as the lead agency in the GovAI coalition of over 100 agencies committed, over 100 so far. I'm sure that's growing, Albert. Committed to effective and responsible AI and vendor accountability. Albert will share how his privacy role with San Jose has led to a governance framework for other communities to use wherever they are on the resource and technological readiness continuums. Albert is going to share key ideas on privacy and trust and point to how you can adapt them for your own community. Albert will speak on this for about 15 or 20 minutes, like Aaron did, and then we'll have plenty of times afterwards to answer questions. So please put your questions in the Q&A for us to track them. And let's go ahead and close this poll because I think Albert's also got a poll. This gives you a little sense of where everybody's at. Lots of people in the public works and utility spaces, as well as election and land administration. So, but Albert, take it away.
Thank you so much, Dan. And thank you again to Aaron for really starting off our presentation right here. Let me pull up my screen. As Dan said, I serve as the City Privacy Officer for City of San Jose, and I want to take some time to talk about how we are integrating privacy and AI into our government through a lens of trust. And with that, really with the trust comes first and foremost thinking about our people. So for those who are unfamiliar with the city of San Jose in California, we've got about 1 million people, around 70,000 businesses, and around 40% of our population is foreign-born. That puts us in the top 3 of metropolitan areas in the US. If you think geographically about what San Jose is, right there, we like to call ourselves the heart of Silicon Valley. On the top end, we have Zoom, Adobe. You're right next to Apple's headquarters. You've got Facebook, or Meta, I should say, Google, just a little bit further north of that, right? A hotbed for technology of the modern day. On the south side and the east side of San Jose, you've got the home of Cesar Chavez, one of the most, if not the most famous activist for farmers. You have just south of San Jose, the Gilroy Garlic Festival, one of the biggest festivals in California around garlic. San Jose is this really interesting mix of both some of the most important, impressive technology that's coming out today and some of our most vulnerable populations. When we think about farming, it's typically low-wage migrant workers who are just trying to make ends meet here. So you've got this mixture of population happening in the same city, and that's really where the government comes in, and the city comes in how do we build trust so that all parts of our community are able to benefit from the innovation that's happening all around us. So I'm going to put up just a quick poll to get a sense of the room here. Because when we think about privacy and we think about AI, especially around governance, the first question we ask is who's owning it? Who's responsible for this? Whether it be a single person, a group of people. So I just want to take a minute here and ask y'all, who owns AI governance in your organization? And it's fine if the answer is, I don't know yet. To be honest, we were there just about a year or two ago. But as we're going through that poll, I'll give you a bit of San Jose's story here. So, as my title says, I run our privacy program. And how does privacy connect to AI? Well, our job is to ensure that the data collected on our residents is used to benefit our residents. This involves bringing our residents into technology decisions, holding vendors accountable, and ensuring that departments and the vendors that they're using are following our privacy policy. It's very much a mixture of how do we bring the human side into technology to make sure that we're using it responsibly. And what we saw in the San Jose as AI became more and more a part of how we were thinking about running our government, the privacy program was the one that got pulled in to lead our AI governance as well. And we're seeing the same thing across a number of cities. Just off the cuff, right? Seattle, I see the same thing in Portland. We see the same thing in LA, San Diego, New York. A number of cities are being driven in the same direction where their privacy person is being tagged to be their AI. So let me see if the poll is closed out yet. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. So this is something that we're seeing as well, right? IT tends to be a pretty big lead on this space right now, right? The city manager is a big lead on this space. And frankly, a lot of people, it's unclear at the moment. And as you're going through and figuring out who is owning the governance, one thing that I really do recommend is just think about who's closest to this mixture of data, technology, and people in your organization. For us, that's been our privacy program. For you, that might be something different. Once you have an owner, it's important to think through the policy, the processes, and the people of your governance program. In San Jose, we've been doing this for a couple years now. We've got a variety of things that we look at, from stuff that we're drafting, such as our central AI policy, AI manual, to our processes, to our people. There's a few components here that I want to focus on, and we'll go through these in the next couple of slides that I would say are, if you're going to start somewhere, these are the spots where you can add a lot of value to your organization in thinking through the responsible application of AI by starting with these. And that's generative AI guidelines, right? Things to think about for how you're using ChatGPT in your organization or other types of AI like that. Annual usage reports to make sure that your AI is being used. It's actually worth the money that you're spending on it. Fact sheet, will go through that. And of course, building trust with not just the people in your organization, but also with the public that you're serving, and what that engagement can potentially look like. There's a bunch of other components to this, but one last takeaway I just want to make sure that you see here. You'll see a star next to a lot of these things, even our AI policy, that are in progress. These things aren't set in stone yet. And I encourage you to be comfortable with things not being set in stone yet, right? From the number of lawsuits that are happening right now between generative AI and Getty Images or other programs, to the constantly evolving nature of this system, be prepared to be flexible. It's okay for things to be in draft right now, because frankly, the way the industry is working right now is in draft. So I'll start off with generative AI guidelines. Whether we like it or not, these tools, whether it be ChatGPT or others, are free. They're easy to access. Frankly, anyone in your organization can go onto them just in the same way they go onto Google and start using these services. We realized that we could not stop people from using these tools, so we took an education approach. And I encourage you to think about taking a proactive educational approach as well. We've got a long 20-page guidelines on this, but at the end of the day, there's some just key rules here. And most importantly along all this is making sure that people understand that if they're using ChatGPT, it's not ChatGPT's fault if something is wrong and they put it out public. It's their responsibility to make sure that their input is fact-checked, they understand what's going on, they're ensuring that the outputs are something that you, as your agency, wants to put forward. And by doing that and making sure that we ask folks to report their usage, not as a regulatory measure, but really just to understand the value of the system, we've found that people are being more empowered, more educated, more understanding of how to use the tools responsibly, And in our reports, we're seeing that folks are saving about an hour of their time just drafting documents, creating PowerPoints, anything like that. It's been a useful tool to help people do their jobs more efficiently. Another component around AI that I really want to emphasize is annual usage reports. So you're probably getting bombarded with vendors that are asking to sell you this cool tool, this cool tool, this cool tool that's doing AI now. I cannot stress enough how important it is for you as an agency to think through, how can I evaluate this tool in the field? How can I evaluate this a year after it's being implemented? This is just an example of one of the annual usage reports that we have publicly on our website. This one is around traffic metrics. So how do we use a camera to identify things like an almost accident happening at an intersection, or a vehicle turning right, or are they turning left? How do we count that information? Because collecting that is incredibly valuable for traffic planning. Creating this type of analysis and understanding the accuracy of these systems does not require you to know how AI works. What it requires is that you take the outputs of the system, what it's guessing, and you visually look at pictures and see, is this actually what's happening? And that's true for a lot of these systems. You don't need to be an expert to be able to review the inputs and outputs to understand, is this useful for you? And just for us in the city, right, this particular usage report really allowed us to understand how we can increase data quality. We realized that the system was really good at identifying vehicles turning and pedestrians walking down the street. It wasn't particularly good at near accidents or near misses or people running red lights. So we made sure to add a human in the loop, a common term in AI, making sure that a human is there to review and make sure that that data is actually someone running a red light or actually someone or a near accident before putting that into our data set to improve data quality. The next component I want to walk through, if that is what you as an organization internally can do, there's key components about how you build that relationship between you and the vendor. I don't know about other agencies, your experience, but for us, one of the most difficult things has just been trying to understand what an AI system is actually supposed to do when a vendor's trying to sell it to us. The way that we've been trying to tackle this is through what we call an AI fact sheet. And I can go into more of this. This is a big part of the AI coalition that Dan mentioned earlier. Getting vendors to explain to us what their system does, how we can evaluate it, how we're supposed to use it properly. The way I like to think about it is understanding the nutrition facts of the AI systems that you want to use. This has been incredibly helpful for us to understand better, what am I actually supposed to do with this? And I'll give you a little quick example that we learned from previously. We're using drones. We're looking at drones flying around, looking at for inspecting infrastructure. One of the things we realized very quickly was we can use potentially autonomously driving drones to be able to quickly inspect infrastructure a lot faster. In talking with the potential vendors, we learned that their autonomous systems wouldn't be able to notice things thin like a chain link fence. So we realized we couldn't have this autonomous drone be piloted around a chain link fence, or else it's just going to run into it because it can't see those things. And those types of little key components were valuable for us to understand where and how we can use the systems, not only responsibly, but effectively. And the last thing that I want to talk through very quickly is public engagement, right? If I'm building trust within my organization, if I'm building trust with my vendors to understand what the system is doing, how do I build trust with the residents that I'm serving to make sure that they understand what we're doing and that they support the technology that we're putting out there? What you're seeing on screen here is just a picture of one of the engagement sessions that we did on a couple of AI systems that we're using right now, right? You can see gunshot detection, so a microphone listening, automatically detecting a snap, a big cracking sound that sounds like a gunshot so that our police can respond quickly, and automated traffic enforcement. What we've seen a lot of, and this goes well further back than just when we started talking about AI, when trying to implement a technology or put up a camera on someone's street lights or, at someone's intersection, we get asked the question, what are you doing? what is this? Why is there a camera all of a sudden here? Is this Big Brother? Is this, what are you looking at? And there tended to be this antagonistic relationship between us and the community we were trying to serve. One of the big shifts that happened for us as we started taking AI governance and privacy governance more seriously was a proactive engagement with our residents, explaining to them before the technology got put out there, hey, this is what we're trying to do. This is why we're trying to collect this data. And we want to learn from you what you're comfortable with and how we can use this in the best way for you. With this type of intervention and this type of proactive engagement, one of the things that we really saw was with our community, even our most underserved community, the folks that people tend to think of as having the most distrust of government. In having these engagement sessions, we changed the conversation from why are you doing this to, oh, I understand what you're doing. I want cameras installed here, here, and here, and at this intersection next to a school, because those are the areas where people are driving like maniacs, and it would make me feel the most safe if I knew the government was helping us there. And that shift from why to here's how you can help me has been huge for us in rolling out this technology and building trust at the same time that we're innovating. So I'm going to flash this up. I don't anticipate y'all to read through every line here. We'll send out the deck afterwards. But just to show kind of there are phases to as you're rolling out your AI governance, from understanding really what you want to do with your agency, starting to pilot a few things, testing them out, talking with your community, understanding where you can help them the most, to really setting out the structures behind these things, your policies, and then constantly going to a point where you can iterate and adapt and learn alongside us and other agencies as the field develops. And again, this is a big thing that we're working on, not just within the city of San Jose, but with over 100 other agencies through a coalition that I'm more than happy to talk about. But it's been truly a great opportunity for us to be able to evolve together. Like I say, many hands make light work, and that has been great for us figuring out all of these things around AI. One last thing, right? All of this governance doesn't really mean much if we're not adding value. So just we're flashing up on screen here a quick list of some of the use cases that we found really valuable for us with AI, from detecting objects in the street, like you see in a picture here, to helping draft memos, RFP requirements, translating language for folks, and a variety of other use cases that we found particularly helpful. And we can do them in a way that builds trust with our community by putting the nice guardrails and the strong governance in place alongside the use cases. So, in conclusion, I just want you to know that there are resources to help you as you're on this journey, right? I know a lot of people are new to this. Frankly, we were new to this just a year ago. There are resources to help. A big shout out to NIST and to the White House, especially the Office of Science and Technology Policy. They have put out some great work for folks like us to be able to piggyback off of and use. The GovAI agencies, the coalition that we put together, has been a great sounding board and a great place for us to put together templates so you can really get to how we think about it 90% of the way to your governance policies in place from the get-go. Huge recommendations, just stay flexible and be proactive. The space is changing really fast. People are going to make mistakes. What I recommend is just be proactive, be ready to learn, be ready to adapt to the situations. Like we say, research, report, and repeat. Learn, report out to your community, and then do it again. Of course, along that, bring your community along for the ride. We're all learning. It's important to do that together. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for taking a moment to listen. What we have up here, if you need to reach out to me directly, you can do so at that email. Hit me up on LinkedIn. More than happy to talk more about this, especially if your agency is looking to get more involved in how you can do AI governance right. And with that, I'll pass it off for the panel discussion with Dan, Aaron, and myself.
Thank you, Albert. That was great. So just a reminder, put your questions in the Q&A down at the bottom of your screen. We're starting to get a couple of questions in there. There's a lot to discuss. I want to get us started. Aaron, you did a great job on talking about this from a builder's perspective. You mentioned the Bot Builders Guild that you're working with, so you have peers and people learning on as they go in that. Can you talk a little bit about the activities of the guild and like what are the kinds of things that you're seeing from the people just in that? That's probably a good sense of what's going on in the larger world.
Sure. We started out, I found that I was spending a lot of time as I moved agencies, I was spending a lot of time hands on keyboard, helping these other individuals that I'd left behind that were picking up my projects and so forth. I reached out to my leadership and said, hey, I would like to start this group, this AI users group. And that's how the Bot Builders Guild was born. We started out showing what we were doing. You know, this is the technologies we're doing. These are the projects we're working. And because we were kind of a little bit ahead, we were doing all the talking and we ran out of things to talk about. To keep the momentum going and to keep sharing what the art of the possible was, I engaged vendors. You know, you get hit up on LinkedIn every day, you know, hey, we got some tech. Even though we had conversational AI, not everybody did. So I invited those vendors to come and showcase the technology to the Bot Builders Guild. They cannot harvest emails for mass marketing. They cannot mass market to all of the attendees. It is a safe space for .gov to come. They don't have to turn on their camera. They don't have to say anything, but they learn more than just the technology they have already, right? They learn the art of the possible. We've had about 40 couple of those since 2001. So any .gov individuals on here, my email was on my slide, aaron.judy@maricopa.gov. Send me an email and I'll make sure you're included on the next meeting.
Why don't we to our tech team, if we can grab Aaron and Albert's contact information and put it in the chat and share it with people as well, just because we're not sharing their slides anymore. But that's great. I want to, Albert, talk a little bit about the AI Coalition. And I mean, it's really just since you and I started talking, it's been growing. So what are the activities of that and how are the people in that able to use the coalition for their, you know, in their own communities?
For sure, Dan. And I think someone on the team, I just posted to the hosts a link to the coalition if folks want to learn about it. I think we can share it with the broader group. Look, this started kind of with a chip on our shoulder. As we started trying to ask our vendors, what the heck is your AI system doing? We got a mix of responses from, here, let me tell you everything, to, sorry, everything is confidential. I can't tell you even if this system works. And that just did not get the job done for us. So from there, we realized us as the city of San Jose, we don't have enough leverage. If we bring 100 agencies together, all of a sudden we can talk to the Googles and the Microsofts of the world to be able to make things happen. And so within the coalition, there's a few things that we're working on. One around that is a standardized list of expectations, a nutrition facts, if you will, of what we're expecting from vendors to give us as we are trying to buy their systems, right? The goal here is that it's something that's simple for the vendor. They fill it out once and they give it to everyone. And it's simple for us to understand what the heck the system does and how we can use it effectively. Alongside that, and as we were building up momentum with a lot of agencies, a lot of folks had questions about how the heck am I supposed to set up an AI policy? What am I supposed to do? Like, when do I trigger an AI review? What does it mean to review an AI? What should I have in my RFPs? All of these questions. And so as we grew, we broke out into working groups to build out, okay, here's what a template policy will look like. Here's what a template manual look like. Here's what your review system should look like. Here's what the type of contractual language you should put into your agreements for a vendor to be accountable for the AI systems that you're working with. Here's the type of stuff you should think about if you have an AI incident. Like, what if an AI goes haywire? What if it starts giving out wrong answers? What if it just shuts off? What's your incident response protocol similar to your cybersecurity incident response protocol, right? So all of these components started coming together, and that's really what we're working on right now. And it's very much a grassroots movement between public agencies. It's literally 100, I think it's 120 now, agencies across the country just on a shared Microsoft Teams space collectively working on these templates so that by the end of February, we have a first draft of, hey, you want to set up your AI governance? Here's your template policy. Here's your template manual. Here's your template review process. You put your name in, you got 90% of the way there, and the rest of it, we're working together to make sure that we can evolve and adapt together. I cannot stress enough, like, we got lucky. We started a little early, but this is even supercharged us as the starting agency to be able to have what I like to think is a getting us closer to best in class in a very evolving industry.
That's great, Albert. So we're starting to get some questions. Just a reminder to put your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to them all here. But we're going to get started. Melanie has a question. I'm going to send this. Start with you, Aaron, and Albert, if you want to weigh in on this. Melanie asks, what's a good way to determine a budget for innovation? How do you predict how much to budget when getting started? And maybe, maybe just like make up a hypothetical example as we go, because I think that would be helpful for lots of people on the call with as new so many people are to this.
Yeah. Assuming, so depending on how big you are, right? This may be easier. The amount you're asking for, the things that you're trying to do may be at different scales. You may just want a chat bot. You may want a $700,000 document sorting kind of AI. There's different, grand scales there. But just to get started, what we've done is talk to the vendors, find out the pieces of technology that we think we're interested in, right? That art of the possible. We're kind of interested in these bits. Find out how much roughly that costs, conversations, right? That's the easiest path. If it is something that you're forced to build yourself, right? You can't just go buy a COTS solution. You're going to buy AI services, because there's a lot of companies out there now. They're just selling services. They have Legos. You got to build it yourself. So if you're buying Legos, that's where the approachable APIs, the technology that you can write a bit of code, have AI write a bit of code and test against their API, get an estimate per call, per document, per whatever you want to do, and try to extrapolate production volumes from there. I saw your other question too, for training. As part of that, we brought in IBM garages. We use IBM as one of our technologies. We brought in working sessions off-site where the vendor came in and talked about technology deeply. We spent an entire week building minimum viable products, MVPs, in a safe space before we released that team to curate our public AI.
Aaron, oh, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, you didn't. You're good.
Yeah, Aaron, I really love your doing approach on this, right? How do I get down there and actually start making something happen? And this is, I'm calling back to something we were talking about in our prep session, actually. I just love the way that you frame it as like, this stuff can cost as little as free and maybe $5 for server time, right? I can guarantee you 99% that there's someone in your agency right now doing something with AI for free that's helping them do their job more efficiently.
Absolutely.
And right. And you can start there. You can start with a budget of $3.99 and make it work. And see what fits for you. No, I just really like that approach that you got going on there, Aaron. And I think it's a good way to get your feet wet.
Is there some agencies, there's probably a blush amount where if I said I need $5,000, where nobody will ask you a question, right? Okay, whatever. If there's that amount, set that aside as that first starter innovation fund. If you don't have a technology in mind, I have no idea, but I want to be able to explore, that's fine. You can give them that money back. But at least you'll have it in case you want to attach a credit card and pay $6 a month, right? If you have somebody
exactly. 100%, right? For San Jose, right? We've got you got your P card limit. It's either $1,000 or $3,000, and that's just the type of that's the experiment, right? That's the test.
Yeah.
Albert, I want to ask you to take a pass at Melanie's next question, which was about training, because I think training is, not so much just the technological, like, and how to operationalize it, but how do you train people on these frameworks that you're putting together for privacy and trust and governance?
Yeah, no, this has been a big thing for us over the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 months, as we've been realizing, right? We can write all the cool, nice sounding policy documents that we want. No one's gonna read them. You know.
You said
So
that. It's true.
how do we get this in front of people's faces? And we've tried to be as obnoxious as possible. We've got flyers on every floor of our city hall right now that say, hey, here are our top 5 rules for how to use AI responsibly. Make sure to fact check it. Make sure you know what's going on in there. Here's a PowerPoint presentation that we're going around to each department. And then usually what we find is we do have the flyers, we do a presentation to, say, like a department leadership, and then that department leadership's like, oh, can you please do this again for my folks here, right? And then all of a sudden you're in this next presentation, and you're doing this next time. And what we found, and I don't, I'm curious if you've kind of seen this. For us, a lot of people are more hesitant to use this technology than I was expecting. When I first started talking with folks, I thought, oh, it's going to be too reckless and we got to pull the reins. A lot of people are afraid. And one of the things that training has really helped us do and give people those guardrails, it's actually empowered people to say, oh, okay, this is the sandbox I can play in. Now I feel like I know where to start.
Yeah. I void warranties, for the record. I void warranties. I wasn't policy first because it scares the deer, right? If you say, here are all the rules and all the ways I want to hit you over the head if you do this wrong, nobody's going to touch it. I don't want to get in trouble. I'm an indentured government employee. I want to see my pension and get out of here. Nobody wants to take that risk. Nobody's going to die on this hill for this one thing, right? Back to, we looked for volunteers. We actually started out here. Who is not afraid of this technology and would like a special work assignment? Oh, you're gonna give me some more money? A special work assignment to learn this new technology, to advance your career, to set the path, set the goal. And then we train them professionally by their companies.
Coalition of the willing.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you tell somebody that we're gonna make you do this, it never goes well, right? Nobody wants to have anything imposed on them, especially in tech. That's what, in my conversation, I alluded to. If I said, server admins, here's ChatGPT, you have to manage this. I have to what? I patch, I restart servers, I upgrade. This isn't what I do.
Yeah.
I want to get to our next question here. Mark asked the question, what sources of funding are there for AI initiatives? And he, asked infrastructure bill. And I think that there's this idea that, like, are we looking at big new sources of money or big pots of money? Or are we looking for where it comes from within our existing organizations? But can you talk a little bit about that? Where are you seeing the funding coming from? Is it always in your department, or is it coming from other places?
I'll take a swing. So collectively, most of the lower budget things came from our own budget. We were able to absorb those, just following the same roadmap that I showed, proving value, purchasing more, following purchasing requirements. We did make a big purchase. We were looking at document management. It was $684,000. Didn't have that laying around. COVID came along. Then there was, the CARES Act. So we had technology selected. I alluded to this in my slides. If you're not ready, be ready. Because as soon as you get that opportunity, CARES Act funding came around. We already knew vendors and technologies that we were interested in, players in the market. We were able to approach them quickly. I'm not sure if you can use infrastructure for that. That's a good question. Albert?
No, I feel you. Yeah, I wish I could just be like, oh, here's a link in the chat. Here's the grant you can apply for. It's great, love it. No, we've been scrappy. So So there's the funding for the people, right? Which has honestly been, let's get a few people who are willing to spend a little bit more time past 5 to be able to work on this. It has been partnering with universities because they have people that are not only really excited about the subjects, but also they've got folks that are willing to put in some work. So for us, right, we've been partnering with San Jose State, which is, I can literally see San Jose State from City Hall, and with Stanford University, which is like a stone's throw away from us, to be able to have those types of internships and those fellowships to get frankly, the capacity to be able to start piloting things and testing them out. In terms of the infrastructure and the technology behind it, that has been more of we have a couple thousand in salary savings here. And we've got maybe a little bit of grant money here. And for us, those grants have been a mixture. They've been mostly from foundations at the moment. I wish I could say that they've been from the federal government. They have not been, right? For us, we've been getting a huge support from the Knight Foundation, which we're one of the Knight cities. They've been fantastic for us in helping innovate. But those types of, whether it be philanthropic organizations, hopefully the federal government's going to come out with some stuff soon, fingers crossed. But I don't know. I just emphasize that try to find the cheap ways to get started now, because I think right now the phase is proving value so that you have a story for the grant applications once they open up, hopefully a couple months from now.
I would add, if you're technically inclined, if you have technical resources, if you have a code proficient person on your experimental team, you're going to have a little bit more agility because you can try things at an API level. If you are trying technology that's just COTS, off-the-shelf solutions, you're going to have a different experience. You're going to have a different cost, ask, model, and engagement. The whole experience is going to be different.
100%.
Mikey has a question. He says he's very new when it comes to AI and drones. He says, how do I even start this journey and introduce it to his leadership? So if maybe if you guys could put on, imagine yourself being somebody very new at this, and like, what would be a first step to exploring AI and drones in a city? And maybe each of you could take a pass at this. Albert, if because you mentioned the piece on in San Jose, but if each like, what would be a first step to get started if you were a complete newbie?
Yeah, so I can kind of tell you some of the process that happened for us, and that might hopefully shed some light. Very organic, very grassroots. Here's what happened. One of our fellows at the time, so someone who was literally straight out of college, they're like, hey, I think we could build a model to be able to help us with our resource allocation for XYZ service. Oh, interesting. Okay. How should we think about that? And then I go to my supervisor and I'm like, hey, director of IT, we might be able to do something interesting here with this new, computer programming technology. Can we test it out? And he's like, okay, so we start grounding it. And I think that was one of the key things for us, has been really grounding it, right? Aaron brought this up, right? If you start with, oh, we're going to do all of AI, it can get really scary really fast. If you start instead with, we have this very specific use case where we think that there's some new stuff that we can apply in, and here's where we're starting to apply it. And then start to sculpt the policy as you're learning your lessons from your use case, right? Now, hopefully, and this is really where the GovAI Coalition is, that hopefully as you're learning, you can start applying some of the tools that we've been putting together, and hopefully you can just make something that's useful for you. But I highly, highly recommend take that kind of approach of, I see a kernel of value here from me personally, or there's someone else willing in your organization that's willing to go for it and test something out, and start with that little kernel and then build out from there. I don't know, Aaron, you got other things?
No.
Yeah, no, I'm glad we're in agreement. I'm glad.
Yeah, no, I'm like, no.
Yeah,
Great.
There's no complete, you're wrong. You're completely wrong, Albert. I would never do that.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think I think that was great. Wait, we've got a fair number of questions in here. Let's keep moving here. By the way, there's going to be a recording of this. Albert and Aaron, if we can share your decks, we'll want to share those with attendees. But Chris has a question here. I'm actually going to break this up in several places. So first of all, he gives a shout out on your presentations. He says, what guardrails are put in place in your agencies to prevent the use of data for misinformation purposes? So how can we prevent this from being used for nefarious reasons as these AI systems come on board? And then he wants to, I want to address separately how this applies under Freedom of Information Act, kinds of things in sunshine laws, but talk a little bit about, have you seen anything that any of the data that you're being used or that's being generated being used for misinformation reasons, and how do you protect against that?
So I haven't seen any of our information necessarily being misused. All of our data store, the utterances, the information that you give to our AI is not exposed to the public. You know what I mean? So you have to hack deep into the network. First of all, you know what I mean? It's not sitting out on it's not an Elasticsearch database hanging out on the internet somewhere where somebody's going to poach it. The guardrails we have are usually around the customer's experience, right? How can I ensure that biases won't be injected into, predominantly what I've done with conversation has been access to justice. So how can I ensure that bias won't become part of their experience? And the way we did that was we didn't use translation services outbound. I know that sounds weird, but that lets me, or that lets the customer say anything they want in any language I can support. I will give you an answer in English or Spanish that was curated by a human. No hallucinations, no impact to your access to justice, and a human curated that answer. So that's really the strictest guardrails that we have probably in place.
How about you, Albert? Have you seen any concerns about misinformation or misuse of the system?
Oh yeah. And this could be a whole panel in its own right, is how to give yourself nightmares about AI after an hour conversation, right? I'm sure Aaron and I could probably talk about that. I'll just real quick say, right, there is a looming concern about the fact that I can now generate voices and ideas in seconds. In seconds, I can have 100 different voices giving you the same perspective, but sounding slightly differently to make it sound like all of a sudden I have 100 people on my side for something. This is scared for public comment flooding. This is, we're afraid of it for a variety of reasons. One thing that I put in here though, because these are unsolved problems. Let me just start there, right? We're trying to tackle them together. This is why I'm trying to bring up this with the coalition. What I'm trying to share with the group here is the ways that we're thinking about guardrails for AI is very similar to the ways we've been thinking about guardrails for privacy. And I just sharing a link out for our privacy program. You can see a bunch of stuff about how we think about privacy, how we think about responsible usage of the technology, the expectations we put on vendors, all that jazz. You can take a look at it. More than happy to talk more about it in details later, but just know that in my experience, it's important to have some of those guardrails put up proactively, just making sure that you have a way to control and understand where data is coming in, where it's going out, whether it be your IP logs or your access logs or whatever you want to call it, to understand, okay, this is the flow of information and how you can control that. I want to just real quick touch on the FOIA thing because we've actually had personal experience with this in San Jose. As soon as we released our first generative AI guidelines publicly, we unsurprisingly got a bunch of FOIA requests for how is the city using generative AI. And what we ended up doing is we ended up releasing for the people that they requested, right? They had very specific requested people, elected officials, whatever. What prompts did you put into ChatGPT and what responses did you get? And so we released those publicly. And this is why the first rule in our guidelines is be prepared. If you put something into ChatGPT, it's like an email. Be prepared for this to become public knowledge. So that's been our experience there. I don't know if that's comforting, but that is hopefully that gives you some information.
How have those officials responded to that? I mean, do they get that, or is that its own hurdle of change management, to get them to understand that?
I liken it to ripping off a Band-Aid. Um, there was a week. It was all of just 1 week where folks were, concerned. They were nervous. They were trying to figure this out. What the heck? We're getting this FOIA request for what? But after that, folks kind of got used to it, and we haven't heard much from that. Even, I mean, I'm knocking on wood here, but even after the request, we haven't seen much buzz about it in the news. And so I think it was actually very fortunate for us to be able to have those tough conversations in a brief time, because now folks, we're smarter about it because of it.
Awesome. Have you, Aaron, seen any FOIA requests, or are you aware of any?
Not pertaining to generative AI, but we, of course, were inundated with what is this being used for. And just like Albert said, after a short time, once I assured everybody that generative AI never gets between the constituent and access to justice, there's never anything to talk about then.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that. So let's go on to Matt wants to know, I think he's coming from a Parks and Recreation and that perspective. Have you seen any AI technologies or any problems solved in that kind of realm that are just intriguing to you? I think Matt's looking for that seems like his context. Anything that's been intriguing to you, Aaron or Albert, either one of you?
So this, real quick, one of the things that we found valuable, and this is just a question, how many people go to your parks? When are they going to your parks? What are they doing at your parks? I don't know about y'all, but for us, these were not questions that we could readily answer. And so one of the pilots that we're doing right now, with a firm called Ubiquia alongside, there's a variety of cell phone vendors. What are they called? Placer.ai, CityData.ai. Take your pick. I'm not here to endorse any vendors. Just they count the number of people that go to the park and what time of day they go to the park, whether it be through cell traffic data or whether it be through just a camera where the camera's not recording. It's just counting the number of people that walk in and out of the park and when they do it. That's the type of information that has been really useful for us to figure out actually, okay, how many people are going to the park? When are they going to the park? What's drawing people to parks? What amenities seem to draw the most people, right?
How long are they staying?
How long exactly? How long are they staying, right? Is this the type of park where I need to have more bathrooms because people are here for 2 hours? Or is this the type of park where people are only here to walk their dog for 5 minutes, right? Those types of questions are things that we can finally start to answer because of new AI approaches to these problems.
Aaron, what about you? Anything in the recreation space?
Actually, no. I spent the last couple of years just focused on the courts, and I'm only now back into enterprise. So hopefully I'll get to play with GIS. I did cut my teeth on GIS. My drone answer was going to be call Esri, but that's not going to be a great response. So
Okay. All right. Mary asks, she's in a very small municipality, population 2,300. She says, we currently use AI only for document generation. So, for example, she had it write a new data loss protection plan. So I guess what I'm looking for are some examples of how other communities our size have utilized AI, some out of the box ideas. So, yes, writing document, like help me draft a thing. That's a common thing that, we're seeing public and private sector. What are some other things that are some really early, easy things that people are doing? And have you seen anybody that you're like, oh, that person's, I never really thought about that, like anybody that you've really noticed doing something clever? Aaron, you were nodding. I don't know if that was.
yeah. So that's probably our greatest use of generative currently, because we don't have it facing the public. But middle level managers, this is my first time in leadership. I've never written a value proposition before. Help me do that. Help me write, when you're writing reviews for 40 of your staff, and there's that safety response, and you want 40 different responses that are slightly different. Give me that. There's a huge time savings in a lot of the mundane things that you do in office. Sort this list, find duplicates, things of that nature. Write a bio. I love first drafts of public engagement efforts. Some of the images, some people have more fingers and thumbs. I don't know if we're there yet.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I'll just add real quick. Regardless of what the use case is or what you want to do, just copy, steal, replicate, take everything you can from the other agencies or the other ones that are figuring this stuff out, right? This is why I emphasize, if you're interested in the GovAI Coalition, you should absolutely take a look at it, right? The goal is that regardless of what use case you want to do, you can get a head start by just copying what someone else did and copying and hopefully pulling from some of the data they did, because a pothole in your city hopefully looks quite a lot like the pothole in my city. And if we can have an AI that identifies potholes, it's the same data. That's the type of stuff that I really want to emphasize, is make sure like you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Hopefully you can just copy and paste the wheel. So hopefully that helps.
So we're up on time here. We had a couple more questions, but one that I just wanted to mention because it was a different flavor really quickly. Any thoughts? Nikita asked, how should tech companies begin conversations with city and county level governments about new technologies they're developing? And he kind of pointed, this came up earlier. Anything that you would have that would be just some advice to the tech vendors that, how to engage with people like yourselves?
I have a lot of thoughts. I have a bag of thoughts for that. So Albert, you go first.
All right, I'll just give real quick, right? Give me your new nutrition facts of your AI system. Explain to me how it's not ChatGPT, because I know for a lot of our exec stakeholders, that can be kind of the first, that's the benchmark right now. And be prepared to help walk us through how we can both engage our staff and our community on your AI solution.
That's beautiful.
Let's see, my quick thoughts are, send me information first. I don't need to do discovery sales until I'm sold on we are going to do this every 6 months for the rest of my life. I don't want to do that with every vendor because they're always knocking on my door. Send me the information, I'll digest it, I'll get back to you. Look at doing enablement. Look at helping me get started on your dime, because often if you want an agency to adopt it, and there's a lot of vendors that are willing to help you for free because they want you to adopt their technology. They will help build MVPs. They'll build all kinds of models and things for you for free to get you started. And then probably lastly, look for a partner that has your interests in mind. If they're deprecating features, I've already ran into this. They turned off things I've been using for years, and nobody told us until, oh, by the way, we're turning this off. Don't be caught in that. You want a good relationship with your vendor so they know your stack, they know your situation. They're going to call you up and say, Dan, we're about to turn that faucet off. You're going to need to come up with a different plan.
Great. Perfect. Well, that's all the time we have here. We went slightly long, but thank you very much. I want to thank Aaron and Albert for joining us today. You did a great job. The information was in the chat about the Bot Builder Guild as well as the AI Coalition. I encourage you to check those out. This series, the AI Workshops for Local Government, is going to be back with more sessions for local government innovators looking to explore AI to help them accomplish their mission, serve residents, and maintain public trust and confidence. Please join us at future sessions. We're going to put in the chat a reminder of how to contact us. But if you've got an idea for a great session, please let us know. We'll see you soon. Until then, thank you, Albert and Aaron, again. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and for sticking with us. And thank you for a great audience. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.